You are about to journey against the current of contemporary thought and beyond the troubled waters of daily news to the very source of our extraordinary culture. You are going upstream with Cashel and Edge.
Well, Mr. Edge.
Hello, Mr. Cashel.
We are here today with Upstream with Cashel and Edge.
Upstream with Cashel and Edge. That's must-see TV in my book.
I can't imagine going through a week without watching at least one episode. I certainly don't.
I don't either.
Narcissist that I am,
Yeah.
Do you watch yourself?
Yeah, I do. I do watch it. I like it. Yeah, I do. I watch. I surprise myself. I watch it like weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
And where I've forgotten about it already.
Right.
And then I kind of get a fresh perspective. I go, wow, that Loy Edge 3 months ago was a smart son of a gun.
Well,
I can sure learn a lot from him.
That's the way when I watch you, that's the way I feel too. It's odd because when I was the last year I did daily talk radio,
Which I remember well.
Yeah,
it was great. I loved it.
I inherited my co-host substitute.
Yeah.
I won't mention her name.
No.
But and my co-host was, like he's since deceased, is Steve Glorioso.
Steve Glorioso, I knew him too.
Very funny, very knowledgeable.
Oh yeah.
Evil, but
well,
he was just ahead of his time. Evil, and no more than the average Democrat. But his co-host lacked all those things: humor, knowledge, information.
Gosh.
I could not listen to my own shows.
She ruined it.
And I said, if I can't listen to them, how does anyone else listen? So that's why it's so refreshing here. I can watch us. And I think when I'm watching us, I said, who does this better than we do? Why are we playing in the minor leagues here? Joe Rogan, jump back. Come on.
The people watching don't know this isn't the big leagues.
Well, we're on the way up. We're
on the ascent, as they say now.
The naturals, and with our Wonder Boys at our side. Sometimes, I don't know if you ever have this experience, I sometimes wake up in the morning feeling like I'm an extra in a science fiction movie, and I don't know how it's going to end.
Well, I've never really thought of it exactly that way, but now that you mention it, that sounds kind of normal.
That was especially true in 2020, which was clearly the stupidest year in American history.
Oh, you're talking about so much change that okay. I see. Now I follow what you're talking about.
Right.
Go ahead.
And I started thinking about this. So just say we went back 10 years and examined things that happened in the years since that were so perversely improbable, you're still shaking your head, wondering whether they actually happened.
Yes. We had a lot of that just recently.
I mean, there's improbable things like, someone like Donald Trump becoming president. It's improbable. There's improbable things like a slow white guy who can't jump being the MVP in the NBA. That happened. But they're not perversely improbable. The thing is that there's a lot of things that are simply improbable in a way that makes you doubt the world around you. Mm-hmm. And we've seen a whole rash of them.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of the cousin to that whole topic where we were going from benefit of the doubt to what's the angle.
Right. What's the angle?
I mean, the same thing is kind of happening with just mores, norms.
Right.
Allowable, the Overton window.
Right.
So many of these things. And before we really get into why it has accelerated so much, I have a theory on the one thing that really kicked it forward, and that is the migration from broadcast to other than broadcast, cable, where there were no language restrictions.
Right.
Because people got used to hearing and saying kind of coarse things like that sucks.
Right.
Okay. They say that in church now.
Yeah.
I've heard priests say, well, and that kind of sucks, so we aren't going to do that.
I agree.
I mean, it's just like, okay, it's completely been scrubbed out, and it's got the blessing of the church now. All these things that your grandmother would have absolutely been horrified. Her dentures would have fallen out if she would have heard her little Jack say, "That sucks, Grandma."
And that's the pace of change. So, for instance, the C word, which I'm not going to even use, 5 years ago could have gotten you fired, thrown off the air, right?
Yes.
And now
I'm waiting.
they use it, especially in British TV, routinely.
Do they?
Yes.
Well, I know they use it routinely. I didn't know it was on
Without
there.
consequence, with impunity. I mean, no one suffers for it.
Wow.
And that's
That one really didn't have any. Nobody was on its side, on the C word side, 10, 15 years ago. Nobody pulling for the C word.
No.
Come emerge, have its
own little niche.
It's a little day. And
But when you think back, I'm just thinking some superficial things, and there's big things and superficial things. Superficially, for instance, who would have believed that a black gay actor would be walking down the street in Chicago at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's 8 below zero? Two white guys in MAGA hats,
bastards,
would see him
and you know what?
And shout out Empire because they watched the show Empire.
They do. That's the most unbelievable thing is that two white guys would watch that. But anyway, go on.
Then just in the off chance they ran into a black gay actor in downtown Chicago at 2 o'clock in the morning in January when it's 8 below zero, they brought along bleach and a noose, right?
Right.
And then they accosted poor Jussie Smollett with this. That's not the perverse part.
No.
The perverse part is that this was reported, right, as with a straight face, that they didn't question it for a day on the media. That, what's her name? Kamala Harris, our vice president, would call it a modern day lynching.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a Fox Nation did a series on this. It was actually pretty good. And the cops were saying, how does anyone believe this? How can anyone possibly believe this came to pass? 10 years ago, I don't think that would have happened. I think people would not have been so locked into their own agenda that they would have at least questioned it just to preserve their own reputation as journalists.
Which is eventually some of them are going to bail out of this thing. My contention is before it goes all the way down.
Yeah.
There are more of them going to be jumping ship because their reputations are hanging by a thread right now just by having any affiliation with these media companies.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. And
because they're totally out of control.
Right, they're losing even the vestige of respectability. But those kind of things couldn't have happened. I don't think they could have happened 10 years ago. Well, partly because, with Barack Obama's prodding, we got re-racialized. And so we have to believe this stuff, we have to. Who could believe that the reparations movement would take hold, and that they would be, in places like San Francisco, they'd be demanding $5 million a person, and we don't even know if it's an annuity or not, like whether we have to re-up every year. We don't know because it's such a state of flux, the state of our culture.
If I ran that deal,
yeah.
I'd have somebody like Ed McMahon. He's gone now.
Right.
But I'd find whoever today's. Maybe it's that guy that was on with Conan. I like him.
Yeah.
And just bring everybody really big-ass checks and take pictures with them.
Show up.
And just go, hey, here's your reparations. Yay! And then you could throw some confetti.
Right. Reparations sweepstake.
That's right. And it might only be, $870.
Right.
But make the check real big and make everybody feel great and just say, hey, so sorry about that slavery thing. I don't know. I
was on a reparations panel a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then when
talk a little more about that.
Well, it was, it was organized by, I talked a little bit about it before. It was organized by American Public Square. And it was a pretty fair idea and moderated by Nick Haynes, KCPT. What's interesting, though, is not less so with the panel than the televised version of it, which I haven't talked about. So when the TV version comes out, they have to abridge it just a little bit. And so there are 40 minutes of time in which one of the 5 panelists is holding court, right? And then I counted the time. Our side got 11 minutes. They got 29 minutes, right? And that's back to our 2-tier justice system of a couple of weeks ago. That's the way they work. And so I'm thinking.
I can just see Nick trying to get a word in there. Okay, but okay, very well, but yes, Jack. Nope, you got it, Nick.
Here's how bad it was. They cut out my whole opening, right?
Oh,
which
wow.
set up everything I was going to say later on.
That sucks.
And then the first time they hear from anyone on our side, we're more than 7 minutes in.
This is you and
Pete Mundo.
And Pete Mundo.
And Nick asked Pete Mundo a question. He says, "What do your listeners think of reparations?" And then the guy with the civility bell is this like angry black guy in the front. The civility bell is supposed to be the one who reintroduces civility into the discussion. So Nick asked Pete, what do your audience, what do your listeners think about this? And this guy says, "Who cares what they think?" And then, and then Nick has to say, well, that's not exactly the way you're supposed to be handling the civility bell. But what I concluded, though, and this is where we get into the improbable craziness of it all. This is Kansas City, which is a relatively historically sane city. I'm thinking if they can't get a second person to show up to be on a panel, if the editors are afraid to give us a fair amount of time, who's going to stand up and say no to this nonsense? And the answer is
nobody.
Nobody.
It's going to go down.
So we got weird stuff going on. And that's just one of like a dozen weirdnesses that are happening.
That we would just say no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the level of coarseness with which politicians are now publicly addressed and confronted,
right,
and conversed with, it's changed a lot.
Oh yeah, a lot, and not for the better either.
No.
Even to their side, I always say when I'm writing an article, I say President Obama, President Biden. I try to observe the formalities and avoid the like the cheap shots. Well, you don't have to do cheap shots because they give you so much ammunition. And it's like when Pete was talking to me before. Maybe I shouldn't say. Yeah, I can say this. He said before the reparations debate or whatever, he said, it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. I said, yeah, but we can't kill the fish. We can wound them a little bit. We can't kill them. Now, it's strange stuff. I'm going to ask you a question that I think speaks to the of the way massive events that we would never have anticipated not only happen, but then they're buried as soon as they happen. Okay, the greatest mass shooting in American history. 60 people killed.
Yeah.
450 injured, shot.
Yes.
500 people shot.
Yes.
Who shot him?
Yes, that guy. Who shot him is a good question.
How's his name not a household word?
And this is exactly the deal. This is what's the angle?
Yeah.
This is how the two come together.
Right.
Yeah, that was really, and we're dealing with so many other absurd things that we haven't even gotten to the point where we're used to chewing on that over again and go, hey, remember that thing that happened 4 years ago?
Right.
That was the biggest deal ever, and there was never, and it made no sense, and there were cameras all over, but none of them was working. But then there were some at this other hotel, and people were saying that there were gunfire over here, and then it was impossible for him to get all the guns up in the room without somebody catching that on camera. Yeah, what happened with all that? Nothing.
I had, I was talking to the ER doctor on the scene, who wanted to write a book, and I said, I knew there were 60 people killed and there were 450 people injured. I said, were most of the people trying to escape got knocked over? No, they were shot. He shot 500 people, and I had to look up his name just before it came on.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I didn't know his name. Stephen Paddock. That's all I know about him. But what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, apparently, if the media wanted to stay in Vegas.
Yeah.
And why?
And the more the more obviously unresolvable or unresolvable that it is, that you can't look at it and go, well, obviously this happened and this happened. The more confused it is, the more quickly it all disappears.
Right.
Because it was all hidden in a smokescreen of chaos in the beginning.
Right.
And then when they're faking like they're trying to get to the bottom of it, they're scattering more Wizzo dust all over the place. So everybody's chasing the wrong things and the wrong people, and little evidence goes away, and some documents go out in some pants and some socks.
And that's it. And I mean, a generation ago, we at least knew the names of Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy and Richard Speck and Charles Whitman. I mean, a parallel. The Texas Tower shooter, right? Remember this? Mm-hmm. I mean, you probably don't remember it happening when it happened, but
I do.
It's certainly 1964, I think.
I remember the Watchtower.
And a Marine goes up, shoots I think he killed 16.
Was that
people.
in Austin?
Austin, Texas.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And everyone knew his name. Everyone knew the story. He killed 16 people. Paddock kills 60 and shoots 500 more.
I think they were all just dancing and stuff and didn't even know they were being shot at.
No, I mean, it was a country western concert. I hate to say this, but thank God it was a country western concert. You know, and this is where the news would have been much different, you know, if it had been, say, a rap concert, right? Oh, God, I hate to even think of the consequences of that. Everyone in America would know this guy's name. Everyone named Stephen would be changing his name, you know what I mean? Everyone with the last name Paddock would be exclaiming, I have nothing to do with this. Which reminds me, I met a guy in Kansas City named Charles Manson once. He had no sense of humor about his name. It was just crazy.
He didn't.
No, you'd think. He'd get used to that.
I would have had a great sense of humor about it. I would have gone ahead with the full-blown, with the tat on the head, the whole deal, just to go along with the joke, you know.
Yeah, shave the head a little bit, you know, slouch down a little. Have a couple of like squeaky Frome types following you around. So we even knew the girls' names back then. Yeah,
I could do.
Patricia Kernwick. I can name Leslie Van Houten. I can name the whole crew, right? Back then, criminals got their due, regardless of their political affiliation. Now we hear about them only if they fit the profile of what we want to hear about. So there are some major, major stories. I mean, I would say, let's face it, perhaps the most dramatically perverse event of the last decade was COVID. And the reaction to it.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
These events, the Trump getting elected, all of these unlikely things that have happened, they bring along with them their own little package of new words.
Right.
And new terms, new concepts that don't, lockdowns and mask mandatory and all these things that not only conceptually are difficult for us to grasp with as Americans,
right,
but they also have an immediate and long-term impact on the language.
Right.
There's so many words that we use.
Lockdown,
that we never, it's like, what the hell is that?
Right.
So I got an RNA, I got a DNRA, deoxyribonucleic acid vaccine. Oh, really? That's great. Yeah. mRNA. Yeah. That's what I got. We didn't know about that kind of crap.
No.
We weren't talking about, oh, yeah, I got the type, F pig flu shot.
Or the variety of masks you could wear, like
Right.
N95s or whatever. Or
we all became mask experts.
Social distance.
We became mask connoisseurs. No, the cheap Chinese masks.
Yeah. Now, I was thinking about it. I was thinking about the absurdities that the whole COVID hysteria produced. Mm-hmm. But imagine, I was just reading, and California was the home of so many absurdities, and still is.
I was there.
As late as July of 2021, Gavin Newsom, the governor, who's now running for president, I think, is ordered a hard close, that's his term, of California beaches. July 2021. So, and the problem for those people is that here they are being denied their beaches, and yet they could turn on their TV set and see that in Florida, these
or
people
the Ozarks.
Yeah, or the Ozarks. Okay, thank God for the Ozarks. I love those people, the pool people. That was Memorial Day, 2020. I've never been more proud to be from Missouri. I posted on my Facebook page, and I said, "This is freedom. This is what it looks like." But they could see that, and they can say, these people were experiencing sunburn, and here they are, holed up. A lot of them are in their own little apartments or houses or whatever, like in Manhattan or New York. I mean, God. And part of the secret, the main part of the secret, was the hysteria when you have a state-controlled media. Well, here's a number that just continues to shock me. I had forgotten about it until I saw Bill Maher mention it on the show the other day. In a year into the COVID epidemic, or whatever it was, like spring of 2021, Gallup did a poll of 35,000 Americans. So this is a comprehensive poll. And they asked the people who took the poll, if you got COVID, what are the odds that you would end up in a hospital?
Right.
Now, the answers were 0 to 5%, 5 to 20%, 20 to 50%, or 50% and above. What if the odds, this is a year into COVID, if you got COVID, you'd end up in a hospital? Among Democrats, 50% and above, 41%. The right answer, of course, is 0 to 5%. Another 28% said 20 to 50%. So 70% of all Democrats were convinced that the disease was probably 10 to 20 times more lethal than it actually was a year into COVID. And they're pulling their information from the mainstream media. And as a result, they totally deform their behavior and probably wreck the economy for a generation. And we haven't even seen the fallout of it yet.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And they still refer to all these things as though they had some validity.
Yeah.
That's what really kills you is 3 years later you hear someone grab onto one of these antiquated terms that the media has used and throw it back. It's like, can we get rid of that now?
Yeah.
Because it was fake.
Yeah, right. And we see on our side, we'll see these composite videos of like the same person changing his opinion like 50 times over the course of a year and then saying, no, he's always believed in X, Y, or Z. Starting at the top, real Anthony Fauci.
To us, that's really embarrassing.
Yeah.
To them, it must be like a speed bump. Like nothing. It's like, did you not see that video of you changing your opinion 14 times?
Right.
Yeah. I'd be like, yes, I guess I'd better go now. Well,
I mean,
I guess my work here is done. I've completely humiliated myself forever. Goodbye.
Fortunately, no one on my side of the fence knows that. They don't know that. I'm still Dr. Anthony Fauci. I'm still,
right.
With this other guy, what was his name, that's been in the news lately?
Yeah, they don't know it. They still,
yeah.
He's still got a lot of Fauci magic in some circles.
And that was just one madness out of many, especially in the year 2020. And here's how mad it was.
FBI.
Yeah, we didn't even get there yet. In 2020, again, we have 2 months of hysteria, lockdowns, can't go out, blah, blah, blah. And then the medical community gives a dispensation to go out and en masse and honor a chronic felon and drug user who, by the way, did a home invasion in which he held up a pregnant woman at gunpoint at her stomach. A dispensation to riot and do that. And then when the rioting is all over, then they change from being like sheep into Stasi, demanding that we get vaxxed, that we lock down, And they're wondering why we don't trust them, right? It's crazy. That's what I mean. I'm watching a science fiction movie or a sequel to Idiocracy, one or the other, maybe both, sitting there thinking, how is this happening? Why am I the only one who's thinking this is all crazy,
To me, the biggest one of those recently was when I was out of town for a couple of days and I was unhooked from all the media.
Yeah.
I came back. I got home. I turned on the laptop or something, and I glanced at Facebook, and I saw all these blue, yellow flags that everybody had on their face. And I thought, what in the hell is this? And that looks like the Ukrainian flag. What? Everybody turned Ukrainian? The way everybody got on that train and just posted their most heartfelt, get the yard signs out, hurry, get the change the Facebook profile, get that flag on there now. We've got to do something, honey. You're right. Let me go get a yard sign.
Yeah, I could join up with the Ukrainian National Forces, or I could put a yard sign out and a flag. Yeah, you're right.
But we're not Nazis. Not anymore, dear. But we might be.
We don't know yet. We'll find out soon enough. No, it was one of many. They're all manias. They're all like these mindless, passion-filled, excursions into madness. And all the flags are up. How many flags are up now? We're only a year into the war or so, and I drove through Brookside the other day. I didn't see a single.
People are getting quiet. They're doing that Homer Simpson stepping back into the bush thing. Hey, Ukraine, Syria.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah, no. What is next? And that's the scary part of this. I mean, right now we're still living our lives in some semblance of order. But it's so, what is it? The William Butler Yeats poem, "The Center Cannot Hold," is how it ends when I forget. I should know this line. I'll think of it next time. When the passionate are crazy and and the center cannot hold is how it ends. Slouching towards Bethlehem. It's the name of the poem. And I should have memorized that before I came on here, but I didn't. I want this show to be spontaneous.
Yeah, you're gonna have to wear the dunce cap for the next episode.
I'll wear the dunce cap for getting things right in this world today. Yeah. I am a capitalist running dog. Yes,
you're a dog-faced pony-faced dog boy.
God save the Queen, man. Come on.
God save the Queen, man. God save the Queen, man.
No,
what the hell was that all about?
No, and it's. But you're right. There's one mania after another. I have a neighbor, for instance, who had their Black Lives Matter signs up in 2020. And then there was that incident in Georgia where this crazed cracker went off and killed a bunch of people in the sex industry because they were.
Yes.
He was as a way of expressing his own self-disgust, basically.
Was he Asian?
No. But
he killed Asians.
Of the 8 people he killed, 6 were Asians.
Yeah, okay.
And it had nothing to do with their being Asian.
No, but they wanted to turn it into the big Asian crime thing. Asian crime has gone mad.
So
they're just knocking off Asians right and left. Well, it didn't bother you when we did it in Nam. Shut up!
So my neighbor, bam, 2 days later, had a Stop Asian Hate sign in his yard, right?
Yeah.
And then when the news sort of leaked out that the Georgia thing was an anomaly. What's not an anomaly is the routine beating and harassing of Asians in places like Oakland and San Francisco and New York City by people who are not Caucasian Americans. And so gradually the Stop Asian sign.
It would have been an interesting conversation. Hello. Yeah, I want to talk to you about that sign in your yard. Oh, yes. Yeah, we support all of our minorities and our Asians. It's terrible what's happening to our Asians. They're being attacked. Yeah, well, I want you to quit criticizing the brothers who are attacking them, okay?
Yeah, right.
Oh, I did that. But I still got my Black Lives Matter sign in the garage. I'll go get that and put it out.
And it's come to that.
Now.
Fear, it drives so much of the agenda here for these people because they don't know. I of course, like the "This House Believes" signs.
Oh, I love those. Hate has no home here.
Right. And your neighbors put that up. And this is I don't know if
make the inference that you have hate in your home.
And right. And in my neighborhood, where I am a known non-Democrat, for sure, when they put those signs in, and they have, are they directed at me? You know, I have my nice little corner house there, everyone can see it.
Normally, no, but in your case, yes, they are.
Probably, yeah. And then once I took a picture of when I first saw them on someone's lawn, and I took a picture of it and I posted on my Facebook page. And I said something derogatory, of course. And then I had a cousin, a real sweetheart, who said, Jack, I have one of those signs, you know. And she is your classic, naive, sweet, decent lib, you know. And I said, in the exchange, I said, can't you see how they might be interpreted by people at whom they're directed? And they're all things saying, I'm something and you're not. They're not just like benign things that I believe in. I believe in science. You don't.
Right.
I believe that love is love. You don't.
Right.
I believe that Black Lives Matter. You don't. I believe that, what else was on there?
My love is a lot holier and more pure than yours.
And the final one was that, at the bottom was that something like civility trumps all, or something, you know, something about kindness, you know, or something.
Oh, that new mega church thing that's been hot lately. They're all doing that. Be kind, be humble, be generous.
Yeah. Pay up.
Pay up. And I thought, okay, surely this didn't come from that one church, that mega church out south and all over town.
Right.
Surely they didn't come up with that on their own.
No.
So I did a little research on it.
Yeah.
And there are companies that crank those out for mega churches all over the country.
Yeah.
Telling people to, you know, be kind, be humble, be generous, or whatever.
It's like the bishop of this church is Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, yeah. Be nice, everyone.
You know, actually, Mr. Rogers wasn't quite the lib simp I thought he was.
I never thought he was.
I don't know.
Where did you get that?
I don't know. I just, because he was on PBS, you know, I presumed him. But I watched the documentary about his life. It was really pretty interesting. That he was, you know, didn't fight in Guadalcanal, or, you know, like.
Not like Captain Kangaroo.
Who didn't, by the way.
Who didn't, by the way. Yeah, I had a buddy post that, and I said, nah, that isn't true. And he was mortified.
He was Clarabelle, though, in the Howdy Doody series before that.
Yes.
Now, here's another improbable one, and you'll like this one. You are probably the highest profile prisoner in the country, and you're on suicide watch, right?
Yeah.
And you have this list of clients that could bring down governments.
Yes.
And you end up hung in your cell.
Yes.
And during that time, miraculously, the video cameras were malfunctioning.
Why didn't they check those? Dang.
And the guards were sleeping, right?
Dang. Got Epstein in the prison, man. I'm sleeping, dude. Well, Epstein's coming. Should we check the bulbs and should we check the camera? Cameras aren't going to be not working. That's something they always say. That's just BS.
And that was, and that was just another speed bump in our 10-year journey towards insanity.
Absolutely. That one at the pedophilia thing.
Yeah.
That's the one that nobody would
Touch.
ever believe. If you would have said, these are the accusations that
Right.
are out there right now.
Right.
And here's who's involved, and here's the scale of it.
Right.
And here is some bizarre evidence that shows somebody's trying to change that narrative.
Right.
Or somebody's trying to disguise these things. Now, who are involved? All the big players in the globe.
Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Bill Gates.
And everybody's, and so, you know, don't know how much of this, nobody knows how much of this is valid, but the fact that it's being discussed so nonchalantly, just like the N-word is now being discussed nonchalantly, and I mean the nuclear one.
Yeah, right.
Nonchalantly by world leaders back and forth.
Yeah, sure.
We would not have seen that happening.
No, in fact, we remember when, in 1983, going back a little while, when I was a baby, but still prescient at that time, still observant. There was this whole anti-nuclear movement engineered by the KGB through their fronts in Sweden and Scandinavia, and it had worldwide implications. Barack Obama, a student at Columbia, wrote a big essay about it that also showed his DNA is just a crappy writer, that you can't overcome that. You can't go from that stupid article to the literary genius you were a few years later. That ended up from locally making a movie in Lawrence about this, like the day the world ended or something. We had a whole...
It's called The Day After.
The Day After, right. A whole movement, which engulfs academia, Hollywood, everything. Talk of nuclear winter. All of it done, engineered to prevent Reagan from putting the missiles in West Germany. And the moment he put the missiles in, the whole movement disappeared, right?
Amazing.
Back then, the KGB had that. Oh, they still do. Whoever's running the communist conspiracy now, it's not a small c communist conspiracy. It's not a large c. The goals are the same. Totalitarianism, despotism, control of the individual, social control.
I think the criminal connections have deepened and grown in so many different ways that it kind of has transcended that old, quaint, well, we're Maoists over here.
No, so, right.
No, we're all just criminals, and we basically will do anything. So,
well, that reminds me. In fact, I was watching a movie on Netflix or someplace, and it was called The Battle in Seattle.
Huh.
And it was about the World Trade Organization meeting. It was a fictionalized version, but it was based on the true incident of this huge brawl in Seattle. This was about 25 years ago when the WTO I think it was the World Trade Organization, was meeting in Seattle. And all these leftist forces came together to shut it down. Now they're in bed with the WTO. Now they don't protest them, right?
No, they are the same.
They've co-opted them.
Yeah, the UN, all of that is the same thing now. It's all the same thing now.
Yeah.
And it's a big criminal collusion.
Right. I mean,
and to call it something political like communist even, or Democrat or progressive, that's a little dated. It's just quaint.
Yeah.
Because you're giving them cover. They're criminals. They're thieves. They're evil criminals who are antithetical to the Constitution.
Right.
That makes them criminals.
And you're conspiring.
You don't need to go on and go, well, they're kind of Maoist, kind of Marxist.
Right.
They're a little bit country, and this one's a little rock and roll. No, they're just crooks.
Right.
They're criminals. They want to break things and steal.
Kathy likes the ballet russe and crepe Suzette.
Mm-hmm.
Patty likes what does Patty like?
What a wild duet.
Hot dog makes her lose control. I always had trouble with that line. It was
yeah.
Because it rhymed, I guess.
I thought about it a lot, about that. Hot dog makes her lose control.
But they're cousins.
Soul.
Identical cousins in every way. The two pair of matching bookends is different as night and day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of perversely improbable things in the last 10 years, we haven't even broached the really, truly worst of them all, perhaps. I mean, COVID was crazy. The George Floyd mania was crazy. Ukraine mania was crazy.
The
collusion to stop Donald Trump was not crazy. It was strategic, well-planned, and involved forces that literally 10 years ago I would never have believed could have happened. That the forces of the FBI could conspire with the presidential campaign and the CIA to stop Donald Trump.
And others, and corporations, and these social media companies, and others.
That's right.
And it's much wider.
It's much
wider.
Ahead. That's right. You're right. It's much wider than that. It includes Facebook, includes Twitter, it included major giant corporations. Not only that, but even things like Google and whatnot. Were manipulating their algorithms so that only bad stuff came up for Trump. And
even on talk radio, they can squeeze that national radio feed in between the shows and get their programming in there, or with those idiotic radio bureau commercial things.
Right.
they can beat you up and humiliate you with commercials about the forest and da-da-da-da-da-da over and over and over until you just want to scream.
And they did it. Here's where it gets really sick. They did it not once, but twice.
Yes.
Second time successfully. And, I was just talking about that the other day because I had been, I remember where I was when I was driving across the country, coming back to Kansas City from my place in New York State, when I heard the story about the Hunter Biden laptop.
Mm.
And I said, this is major. This is major. This is a game changer. In 2016, the game changer was Jim Comey's announcement that they were reopening the Hillary investigation.
One of the most bizarre, still ever, official statements ever to come out of any official office. Because when he was done, you were I don't care who you were going, what the hell just happened?
Right.
He just read a laundry list of extremely serious federal crimes and then said, so that's it.
Yeah.
And good night.
And then like a month later, remember, he reopens it.
Yes.
The investigation. And because I was going to France right after that. And I remember my French host saying, well, it looks like the election's over. I said, you didn't hear today's news. I said, this is another game changer. Well, in 2016, they were reporting game changers. The media reported that Comey reopened the investigation. They criticized for him. For 6 months, he was the most hated man, second most hated man in America, until Trump redeemed him by firing him. But in 2020, they were more sophisticated, and they shut down that news. And I think looking back, when future historians look back at this era and they'll say, how did an entity, a media, so betray itself that they would shut down the biggest news story of the year in cooperation with 51 intelligence officials and the White House, and rather the Biden campaign. He wasn't in the White House yet. And they coordinated it so that he would have that talking point.
The Obama White House.
That's right, the Obama White House. No, it was the Trump White House.
Well.
Yeah, I mean, superficially.
The Obama White House never really shut up, closed up shop.
But if you read the reports on this, they coordinated with the Biden campaign in such a way, and they had to do it quickly, so that because he had a debate coming up in a couple of days, that when Trump raised the issue of the laptop, which he inevitably would, Biden would be able to say, at least 50 intelligence officials have said this is Russian disinformation, right? And he got away with it.
Yeah.
And he was elected, air quotes,
right,
president of the United States, a couple of weeks later.
Yep.
So, yeah, I know I'm a bit of a Pollyanna, but 10 years ago I could not have foreseen such an eventuality.
Nobody would have.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Nobody could have gone that dark with the FBI.
Yeah.
And said the Department of Justice is going to be here. Now, I did, right after 9/11, my late friend Billy Bigger was out in L.A., and I said, the day after that happened, I said, they're going to open a very powerful new federal agency that's going to overshadow the FBI and the CIA.
Right.
He's like, no way, they're going to use this to strengthen. I go, nah. And then Homeland Security.
Right.
Introduce a new level of chaos. Introduce more
control.
Yeah. I've always said, Jack, on what they use to maximize the chaos is they produce plausible deniability and perverse incentives.
Uh-huh.
That's how they manage. That's how their operational state gets things to where they want them.
Right.
In total subservience and inefficiency and just under their control.
And then having warped 2 consecutive elections. They come back for number 3 with arresting Donald Trump, slapping the wrist of Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
Arresting Donald Trump a couple times for a couple things. It's just, it's amazing. And that's why I sometimes feel like an extra in a science fiction movie.
That'll do it.
And I'm not sure.
That'll do it.
Some mornings I say, okay, wake up, Jack. It's okay. Wake up. It's 1955 again or something. Some happy year where everything made sense, I don't know what year that was, but it was quite a while ago. Probably 1988, probably 1989, Berlin Wall falls. And then, everything seems to make sense.
Well, I got a good one for you.
Yeah.
Just came to mind.
Okay.
All right, so it's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And you and I are sitting there, and you're going, Loy, I'm tired of driving this beat-up old dump of mine. Yeah, Jack. I go, but, gas-powered cars are going to be illegal in California. They're going to make them illegal. They're going to outlaw them.
And I said, shut up, Loy. I got some eggs frying on my gas stove here.
Right. And here they have announced, oh, by the way, cars are going to be illegal. You just got to get some electric thing.
That doesn't work, and it blows up. And like in the poor bike shop where 4 people are killed because the electric bikes blow up. But
I didn't even hear about that.
Those are the things that are improbable. We'll be back soon to bring you more of the improbable and strange and true.
That's right. Next time, we're going to tell you what's going to be happening 10 years from now that is unbelievable.
You won't believe it.
You will not believe it.
And we'll be accurate. And if we're not, you have to wait 10 years to find out.
That's right. We're going to do the whole climate change trick.
Right. It'll be point
We'll
one.
all be dead if we don't do this.
We didn't even get into climate change, but that started before the last 10 years, so we could see that coming. But, hey, we'll see a lot more coming next time we're here on Upstream with Cash on Edge.